Before Moses climbed a mountain to receive the law, before the first page of Genesis was likely written down, someone was already telling this story. Job might be the oldest book in the whole Bible, and it's built around a conversation that almost no human being ever heard. Picture a man sitting in a pile of ashes. He's scraping his own sores with a broken piece of pottery, just trying to survive the pain. We don't even know his name yet. That's Job. This is not a story about a bad man getting what he deserved. It's not a story about a good man getting a reward. It's something stranger. Job did everything right. He lost everything anyway. And here's what almost nobody talks about. While Job is burying his own children, he says one sentence that scholars still argue over today. We'll get there. It might be the most shocking line in the whole book. But first, you need to know something wild. This is the only story in the Bible where you get to see behind the curtain. You get to sit in on a meeting in heaven that Job himself never sees. Not once. He never finds out what we're about to find out. So here's the question this book asks, and it's the same question people ask in hospital rooms and at funerals every single day. Do I love God because life is good, or would I still trust Him if it all fell apart? Let's walk through it together. The courtroom, the fall, the silence, the storm, and finally, the answer. The Bible calls Job blameless. But that word trips people up. It sounds like Job never made a mistake, like he was some kind of perfect superhero. That's not it at all. The Hebrew word is tam. It doesn't mean sinless. It means whole, complete. Think of it like this. Job was the same man in every room. Same man at home, same man at work, same man when nobody was watching. There's another Hebrew word that means flawless, and the writer didn't use it. He picked tam on purpose. This matters because Job's character wasn't handed to him. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a reward for good behavior. It was built, slowly, over years and years of small choices nobody else ever saw. And here's the part that hits close to home. This isn't just an ancient story about a rich man in a desert. This is about the husband who stayed faithful for 20 years and nobody claps for it. The business owner who could cut corners and doesn't. The parent who keeps showing up, even exhausted, even unnoticed. That's the kind of whole Job was. And it's important to understand this before the story moves forward, because everything that happens next is going to test that wholeness in a way nobody could have prepared for. Right now, his character has never been tested by real loss. That's about to change. Now here's where the story gets strange. Before anything happens to Job, the scene shifts somewhere else completely. Heaven, a courtroom, beings the Bible calls sons of God, show up to present themselves before the Lord. And standing right there among them is someone called the Satan. That word trips people up too. In this book, Satan is not yet a name. It's a title. It means the accuser, or the adversary. Picture a prosecutor walking into a courtroom. That's the job this being holds here. The one who challenges, who tests, who questions motives. Now comes the detail that should stop you cold. God is the one who brings up Job first, not the accuser. God says it, almost like he's proud. Have you noticed my servant Job? There's no one like him on the whole earth. Think about that. This isn't a hunter stalking a target. This is God putting Job forward, on purpose, into the one conversation that will define the rest of his life. And Job knows none of it. Right now, somewhere on earth, he's probably eating breakfast. Maybe checking on his sheep. Maybe laughing with one of his kids. He has no idea that in a courtroom he'll never see, his whole life just became the subject of a wager between God and the accuser. That's the part of this story that still unsettles people today. The biggest moment of Job's life is happening right now, and he doesn't know it's happening at all. No warning, no vision, no voice from heaven. Just an ordinary morning, while everything is already being decided somewhere he can't see. Job lived in a place called Uz. We don't know exactly where that was, but we know what Job had there. He was the richest man in the entire region. 7 sons, 3 daughters, thousands of sheep, camels, oxen, and donkeys. A house full of noise and feasts and full tables. But here's a small detail most people skip right past. Job had a habit. After his kids finished one of their feast days, he would wake up early and offer sacrifices for each one of them. Not because he knew they'd sinned. Just in case. Just in case one of them had turned away from God quietly, in their heart, where no one could see it. Every single time. Like clockwork. Hold onto that image, because we're coming back to it. Now here's the part that should bother you. There's no hidden sin, no secret scandal, no shadow side to Job's story that explains what's about to happen. The writer makes sure of that. He wants you to look for the reason and find nothing. And that's exactly the point. This story isn't asking whether suffering happens because of sin. It's asking something much harder. Does love only exist because life is good? Or is real love still there when every single reason to have it disappears? That question is about to get tested in the most brutal way possible. 4 messengers, 1 day. It happens fast, almost too fast to process. A messenger runs up to Job, out of breath, and says raiders swept in and stole all his oxen and donkeys. Before he even finishes talking, another messenger arrives. Fire fell from the sky and burned up every one of his sheep. Before that man finishes talking, a third one arrives. Raiders struck again and took every camel. And before he finishes talking, a fourth messenger arrives with the worst news of all. A massive wind hit the house where all 10 of his children were eating together. The house collapsed. All 10 of them are dead. 4 messengers, back to back, not even a pause to breathe between them. Now, that phrase, "fire of God fell," would have made ancient readers think lightning, a direct strike from heaven itself. But keep reading this book, and later on, the text quietly corrects that assumption. It wasn't God's hand doing the striking at all. Here's what Job does next. He stands up, tears his robe, shaves his head bald, which was the deepest sign of grief in that culture. And then, instead of cursing, instead of screaming, he falls to the ground and worships. And he says the words, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away." That's only half the sentence. There's more coming, and it's the line theologians still can't fully explain. 3 friends and a cure that makes it worse. Job's suffering isn't finished. A second wave hits. Painful boils cover his body from head to foot. He sits in a pile of ashes, scraping his own skin with a broken piece of pottery, just trying to survive the pain. Even his wife, watching him fall apart, tells him to curse God and die. Then 3 friends show up: Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. And at first, they do something genuinely good. They sit with him in total silence for 7 days and 7 nights. No advice, no lectures, just presence. That's the one part of this section worth admiring. But then they start talking. And their whole argument boils down to one idea. If you're suffering like this, you must have sinned. That's called retribution theology, and it's probably the oldest, most tempting bad theology in human history. It sounds fair. It sounds logical. Good things happen to good people. Bad things happen to bad people. So if bad things are happening to you, you must be the bad one. That belief is about to crush Job worse than the losses did. Because now it's not just grief. It's isolation. The men who should understand him are blaming him instead. And that's where Job hits bottom. Not from losing his kids or his herds, but from being accused while he's still bleeding. He curses the day he was born. He demands an audience with God. And deep down, he doesn't even believe God will answer. A voice from the storm. For 37 chapters, humans argue. Job defends himself. His friends accuse him. Round after round, nobody wins, nobody gets answers. And then, finally, God speaks. He doesn't come with a calm explanation. He comes out of a whirlwind. And instead of answers, he asks questions. Over and over. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Can you command the morning? Do you know how the wild goats give birth? Have you seen the storehouses of snow? Here's something people miss. These questions aren't about the past. In the Hebrew, they're framed as present, ongoing action. God isn't just saying, "I made this once, long ago." He's saying, "I am holding this together right now, every second, while we're talking." The whole universe, still running, still in his hands, this very moment. And this part matters a lot. God is not rebuking Job for grieving. He never once tells Job to stop feeling pain. And he never actually answers the question of why any of this happened. That question just hangs there, unanswered, the whole time. What God is doing instead is bigger. He's showing Job the size of the world he's part of. Wild goats, storehouses of snow, a sea monster called Leviathan. These weren't random images. They reflect real knowledge people had about the natural world back then, which makes this speech feel less like poetry and more like a guided tour of something real and enormous. The point isn't an explanation. It's trust that doesn't need one. Let's walk back through it. The wager, a conversation in heaven Job never saw. The world, a good life with no hidden sin to explain what came next. The breaking point, 4 messengers and a body covered in boils. The long silence, 3 friends who traded comfort for blame. The turning point, a voice out of the storm that never actually explained anything. And the cost, a man who lost everything and still, somehow, kept trusting. If this helped you see Job in a new way, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. Someone in your life is sitting in their own ash heap right now, and this might be the thing that reaches them. So here's the question for you. Wherever your ash heap is right now, whatever you've lost that nobody can explain, this story was written for that exact place. And here's the promise, though it's not the one you might want. God never tells Job why any of it happened. Not once. The promise was never an explanation. It's that he shows up inside the pain itself. So picture Job again, sitting in the ashes, scraping his skin, saying nothing for 7 days while his friends just sat beside him. Before any voice from the storm. Before any answer. That silence was already holy. Maybe that's where you are this week. Not needing an answer yet. Just needing someone to sit in the ashes with you.